Beneath the scorching sands of Egypt's western desert, archaeologists made a discovery that would shake the foundations of early Christian history. In 2024, a team excavating near the ancient oasis of Karga stumbled upon something extraordinary. A vast monastic complex, perfectly preserved by the dry desert air, untouched for over 14 centuries. But this wasn't just another archaeological find. Inside these crumbling walls lay secrets that powerful institutions had buried for generations. Letters written in fading ink, daily journals chronicling forbidden practices, and evidence of a way of life so different from what we've been taught, that it raises one haunting question. What else has been hidden from us about the birth of Christianity? Today, we're going to uncover the lost world of Egypt's Byzantine monks, men who lived, prayed, and died in ways that history tried desperately to erase. Picture Egypt in the 5th century AD. This isn't the Egypt of pharaohs and pyramids. That world died 1,000 years before. This is Byzantine Egypt, a land caught between ancient traditions and the rising tide of Christianity. In the harsh deserts west of the Nile, something remarkable was happening. Thousands of men were abandoning civilization entirely, walking into the wasteland to seek God in absolute isolation. They called themselves the Desert Fathers, and they were building something the world had never seen. Monasteries in the middle of nowhere. These weren't the grand cathedrals of Rome or Constantinople. These were rough stone compounds, baked by relentless sun, where monks wore rough wool in 100-degree heat and survived on stale bread and brackish water. But why? Why would anyone choose this brutal existence? When the first archaeologists entered the newly discovered monastery, they expected to find what centuries of church history had taught them. Evidence of pious men living in holy simplicity, copying scriptures, and praying in silence. Instead, they found something that didn't fit the narrative at all. The monks' quarters contained unusual artifacts, healing herbs labeled in Greek, astronomical charts mapping the stars, and strangest of all, hidden chambers beneath the chapel floors, filled with objects that had no place in a Christian monastery. Egyptian amulets, Coptic magical texts, ritual tools that looked more pagan than Christian. The expedition leader stood in that underground chamber, dust motes floating in his flashlight beam, and realized he was looking at evidence of something historians had only whispered about. The monks of Byzantine Egypt hadn't completely abandoned the old ways. But if this was true, why had it been scrubbed from every historical record? The journals found in the monastery tell us the real story, and it's not what the church wanted anyone to know. Brother Theodore, a monk who lived there around 580 AD, wrote in barely legible Coptic script about his daily life. He describes waking before dawn, yes, but not just for Christian prayer. He writes about invoking the protection of the old guardians, and performing rituals to align the soul with the cosmic order. Another monk, whose name has been lost to time, documented something even more shocking. These monks were healers who blended Christian prayers with ancient Egyptian medical magic. They would pray to Christ while simultaneously invoking Isis. They made amulets inscribed with Bible verses on one side and hieroglyphic symbols on the other. This wasn't corruption or heresy in their eyes. To these monks, Christianity was simply the newest chapter in Egypt's ancient spiritual story. They saw no contradiction. But the bishops in Alexandria and Constantinople, they saw a threat that needed to be eliminated. Here's where the story gets darker. In 641 AD, Arab armies swept into Egypt, and the Byzantine Christian world collapsed almost overnight. That's the official story. But the archaeological evidence suggests something more deliberate happened before the Arabs ever arrived. Multiple monasteries across the Egyptian desert show signs of systematic destruction in the decades leading up to the conquest. Libraries burned, walls demolished, communities scattered. And it wasn't invaders doing it. It was other Christians. Orthodox authorities in Constantinople had been waging a quiet war against these Egyptian monks for years, accusing them of practicing Coptic superstition and mixing the pure faith with pagan filth. Letters from Bishop Cyril of Alexandria, dating to the 5th century, explicitly call for the cleansing of desert heresies. It shows clear evidence of being deliberately buried. Covered with sand and rubble, in a way that suggests human effort, not natural erosion. Someone wanted this place forgotten. Someone wanted these monks erased from history. And for 1400 years, they succeeded. So who were these monks really? Let's bring one back to life. His name was Marcus, and we know about him from a papyrus letter found clutched in a clay jar. Marcus grew up in a small village near Thebes. His father was a Christian carpenter, but his grandmother still whispered prayers to the old gods when she thought no one was listening. When Marcus was 20, he walked into the desert to join the monastery, carrying nothing but a blanket and a wooden cross his father carved. The letter he wrote describes his first year, the brutal heat, the loneliness, the strange beauty of the desert at night. But it also describes something more intimate, his struggle to reconcile the faith he was taught with the magic he felt in this ancient land. The desert remembers, he wrote. The stones here knew gods before Christ, and they are not silent. Marcus lived his entire adult life in that monastery, praying in a chapel built over the ruins of a much older temple. He died there, probably never knowing his entire way of life would be erased. After the Arab conquest, a convenient narrative took hold. The church authorities claimed that Egyptian Christianity had been pure and orthodox until the Muslim invasions disrupted everything. The desert monasteries were portrayed as bastions of true faith, martyred by foreign invaders. It was a perfect story, tragic, noble, and completely false. The real Egyptian Christianity, the one practiced by monks like Marcus and Theodore, was deliberately written out of existence. Scrolls were burned, buildings were buried, and the few records that survived were carefully edited by scribes in Constantinople to remove any trace of Egyptian contamination. Why go to such lengths? Because these monks represented something dangerous to institutional Christianity, the idea that faith could be personal, syncretic, and rooted in local tradition, rather than distant authority. They proved Christianity could be Egyptian, not just Roman, and that was a truth too dangerous to allow. So it was buried beneath the sand, lost to time. This discovery changes everything we thought we knew about early Christianity. For centuries, scholars have portrayed the faith's expansion as a simple story. The pure message spreading from Jerusalem to Rome to the world, overwriting everything it touched. But Egypt's monks proved that's not how it actually worked. Christianity didn't erase local cultures, it merged with them, absorbed them, became something new in every place it landed. The Christianity of Egypt looked nothing like the Christianity of Rome. And church authorities spent centuries trying to hide that fact, to create the illusion of a unified, unchanging faith. But the sand doesn't forget. These monastery walls, these letters, these hidden chambers full of blended traditions, they're proof that history is far messier, far more beautiful, and far more human than the official story suggests. The question is, what else have we been taught wrong? But here's the most haunting part of this discovery. The excavation team found one chamber they still haven't fully explored, a sealed room beneath the main chapel. Its entrance deliberately blocked with stones and covered with Christian symbols meant to ward off entry. Ground-penetrating radar shows it's not empty. Something is inside. Based on the size, archaeologists believe it could be a library, possibly the largest collection of Coptic Christian texts ever found. If they're right, we're about to discover writings that could rewrite everything we know about early Christianity. But there's resistance. Certain religious authorities have quietly requested the excavation be delayed. They want time to prepare for proper theological interpretation. Translation: they want to control what the world learns. As of today, that chamber remains sealed. What's inside? We may soon find out. The monks of Byzantine Egypt lived, worshipped, and died in ways history tried to erase. They practiced a faith that was beautifully messy, deeply human, and far more complex than the simplified story we've been told. Their monastery, buried for 14 centuries, is finally giving them a voice again. But this is just one site. How many other stories lie beneath the sand, waiting to be discovered? How many other truths have been buried by those who write history? If this story fascinated you, if it made you question what else we've been taught wrong, then do me a favor, subscribe to this channel, hit that notification bell. We're going to keep digging into the hidden corners of history, the stories they don't want you to know. Share this video with someone who loves mysteries and ancient civilizations, and drop a comment telling me, what lost history do you want uncovered next? Thank you for watching. Remember, the past is never as simple as they teach you. Keep exploring, and I'll see you in the next one.